imagine major cities like New York and Miami being engulfed by the ocean. Like modern Atlantis, some of our most historical locations buried just out of reach by an ever-so-powerful sea. Now imagine all of this could have been prevented if we as a species had made a more concentrated effort to emphasize climate change as an important issue. Unlike many of the supposed major issues our country is dealing with today, climate change would not only affect everyone in my audience tonight, but every living thing on this planet. While the majority of climate scientists agree that climate change is real and that we are responsible for it, they are having trouble convincing the public to believe the same. If we are unable to convince the public, we could face some very serious outcomes in the next 50, 100, 500 years, which may seem like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things is really not. Luckily, there is some hope. Between new eco-friendly technologies and younger generations raising climate change awareness through social media, we are making some steps in the right direction. There is a scientific consensus in which 97% of climate scientists around the world believe that climate change is real and that we as humans are the biggest contributor to the issue. In a study I read by Hamilton et al., he states that 80% of Americans believe in climate change, but only 52% believe that humans are a main cause of the issue. There are many different factors that affect people's belief in the scientific consensus. Geographic location being having a significant impact on their belief, with those closer to coastal regions being more likely to believe in the scientific consensus. And there's also a frightening link between political affiliation and the belief in the scientific consensus, with 80% of Democrats and 55% of independents in agreement with the scientific consensus, while only 31% of Republicans are. Education also has an interesting role on the belief in climate change. While in Democrats and independents, while education level rises, the belief in their belief in climate change rises, while there is an inverse effect on Republicans. While their education level increases, their belief in climate change decreases. If we fail to change the public views to make more serious changes to prevent climate change, scientists predict some very dire outcomes. During my research, I came across the Destiny studies by Robert Sokolow, and he predicted possible outcomes for the next 50 and 500 years into the future. One of the most important issues he talked about was the rising sea level. While there is still some uncertainty about how fast the sea level is rising, there is definitely agreement that it is rising. And on average, it's predicted that it will rise by about 1 meter by the year 2100. 1 meter in 75 years may seem insignificant, but if the ocean is to rise by 1 meter, we will lose some of our most historical coastal cities. Places like New Orleans would become more like a scuba exhibit. And this is a future that even if we make changes, we may very well have to face. Another key topic you touched on was the idea of peak oil, which was a theory that we would burn all of our available fossil fuels before we caused harm to our planet. While this may have been possible at one time, thanks to new technologies and the popularity of shale gas and shale oil, we now have an abundance of oil, and peak oil theory is no longer valid. These potential outcomes may sound bleak, but there is still time for us to correct our mistakes. If we just come together to force change to protect our planet. One of the most important things we can do is to raise awareness. One study I read showed that on Twitter, the majority of climate change related tweets are more from believers than deniers. And based on that Twitter study and some of my own local research, I believe that the younger generations are more likely to believe in the scientific consensus as long as they are exposed to the issue. Some other potential solutions I came across during my research included a carbon budget, which would help us control the amount of fossil fuels we burn, as well as stronger support for solar panels and other clean energies, and an increased production of technologies like electric cars and home efficiency products. It is not enough that only half of Americans believe in a potentially planet-ending issue. Thanks to a very highly funded opposition, it's very hard to convince people how serious the issue is. But the reality is we continue to fund the opposition by spending millions on gasoline, while new sources of energy receive almost no funding. In my speech tonight, I have mentioned the current state of climate change belief, talked about potential outcomes we face if we fail to change, and given some potential problems to fix some of the issues. While it may be easier to write this issue off and continue with your normal routine, I hope that what I have told you today will convince you to take climate change seriously, and that we can help make changes to protect our planet for future generations. Thank you.